Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's episode of Fried Chicken and Waffles. This week we'll be talking about the tragic mulatto, so grab a bag of popcorn, comfy seat, and enjoy the show.
Our first guest today is Lydia. Lydia was a mulatto woman in the silent film Birth of a Nation. This film debuted in 1915 and was set during the Civil War and Reconstruction era. Welcome, Lydia.
Hi.
What is your role in this historic film?
Well, I play a woman with white and black parents in the Reconstruction era. I am the Stoneman's housekeeper, and they were a white family in the North during this time. And I portray a very lustful mulatto with very overt sexuality, and I eventually have an affair with Mr. Stoneman.
Interesting. And why do you think your character was so sexualized?
Well, the black blood in me is very overplayed in this film. The blacks in this movie were seen as very over-aggressive sexually, and because my black blood was such a big part of me, the view that was portrayed in this idea was that the sexuality was out of control. And this could be contributed to the idea that blacks were considered animalistic in nature or savage, and this led to an over-exaggeration of animalistic sexuality.
And how did your mulatto characteristics influence future generations of mulattoes?
Well, I set the stage for the tragic mulatto woman, really. I did not know how to control my sexuality or the blackness in me, and this contributed to the idea that any drop of blackness in your blood leads to a sense of savageness in your character. And this leads to many tragic events in this mulatto character portrayed through time. An example would be the idea that the ultimate desire of a mulatto woman is to be with a white man. And in my case, I got what I wanted, but at the price of my reputation and my sanity.
Thank you so much for your time, Lydia.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we'll be hearing from Piola, the tragic mulatto character in the book-turned-film The Imitation of Life. The story is set during the 1920s and 30s, where Piola finds much tension in her identity as a mixed-blood woman. Piola, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it's like to be a mulatto in the 1920s and 30s.
Well, as you said, my name is Piola, and I'm a mulatto character in the book-turned-movie, The Imitation of Life. My mother, a black woman, was hired as a mammy for a white family and brought me with her. My father was white, and I therefore was light-skinned, but still had black in me and was mixed blood. Many people would not know or be able to tell that I was mixed blood because of my white appearance. My mother was constantly trying to instill in me this sense of black pride, but it was really hard, the tension between my white appearance and my black identity.
What was the typical view or perception of blacks during this time in history, especially of the black woman?
Well, during the 1920s and 30s, the view of whites towards blacks was still harsh and oftentimes violent and hateful. People started riots because they didn't like something a black person did. There were murders and beatings, and blacks were continuously treated as second-class citizens.
In the clip we showed, what is it that your mother couldn't understand about you being a mulatto?
Well, my mother couldn't understand what it was like to have white and black in her, and I was tired of being treated as a second-class citizen because of the small black that was in me, even though it wasn't able to be seen. I had to sever all ties of my blackness in order to move on with my life and be portrayed in the way that I wanted to.
Does the inclusion of multiracial characters into a narrative inevitably introduce a racial message?
I think in this film it did, and one was the idea that appearance doesn't truly make a difference when determining who someone is or how they should be treated. I simply had mixed blood but looked the exact same as a white, and without anyone knowing the truth about my blackness, I could be treated as a human being.
Thank you so much for your time, Piola.
Thank you for having me.
Next up, we have the Academy Award nominee, Dorothy Dandridge. Her successful and abundant career as an actress has greatly changed the image of the mulatto, and here she is. Dorothy, tell us a little bit about your career as a mulatto actress.
Well, as you said, my name is Dorothy, and I have been so blessed to have an amazing acting career. I've been able to act along with the great African-American actor Sidney Poitier, and I'm so proud of my Academy Award nomination for Carmen Jones, and I'm so proud of the image that I'm able to represent as a mulatto woman in receiving that.
What choices did you make in your acting career to reshape the image of the mulatto woman?
You know, I think that's a great question. I think that I'm very aware of the stereotype that the mulatto woman has portrayed throughout the images, and because of this, I have firmly announced that I am not willing to fall into that stereotype, and I am not willing to portray the maid or the undersexualized woman in my movies. I really want to portray a very strong, new mulatto, such as the image that I portrayed in Carmen Jones.
It's now publicly known that you have had several abusive relationships with men. What do you have to say about this?
You know, I think that's another great question. I think that my acting career has it's transformed into my personal life, and I believe that the over-sexualized image that I've portrayed in some of my movies has now become somewhat of a reality. But overall, I'm really just trying to portray a new, strong, individual mulatto woman.
Well, thank you, Dorothy. Thank you for your honesty and your time.
Thank you.
Now we have Halle. Halle Berry is the first black actress to win an Oscar for Best Actress. She has also won Golden Globe and Emmy, and she has been in dozens of films as one of America's most successful actresses.
Stop.
Welcome, Halle.
Thank you.
How has the image of the tragic mulatto changed?
Well, I don't think it's changed very much because stereotypes still do exist today. Although I think the idea of the tragic mulatto is more romanticized, as a mixed race identity of the American ideal. Reducing people of, this biracial identity to a thing rather than, an individual, but it's now more of a notion or ideal created by Americans.
Interesting. And in what roles have you played that portrayed the tragic mulatto?
Well, in the film X-Men, the tragic mulatto is not portrayed in the case of the myth, but in this film, my character it's a mixing of both racial and genetic mutation. So in a sense, I'm a mulatto, I'm interracial, I'm mixed by both genetic and racial characteristics. I'm a mutant, which essentially is mulatto in that context. Well, in the movie Catwoman, I'm displayed as the tragic mulatto in the sense of I'm exotic and, over-sexualized. So I think that also covers the other aspect of the tragic mulatto myth.
Yeah, and what do you think the social significance of today's image of the tragic mulatto is?
Today there's a lot more racial harmony as opposed to the years past, and also I think the tragic mulatto, it promotes the idea that America has achieved its multicultural idea and sense of how it's changed to be a more accepted and celebrated thing. And we're defined and put in a category that best satisfies the white perceptions of race and mixed race, which I think is, carried on throughout the generations. But also the idea of biracialism is still sold through media representations and stereotypical movie roles, as in the case of a lot of movies that I've played, such as Catwoman and X-Men. Those stereotypes still do exist. And although, luckily, people do admire us for our beauty and celebrate us as America's future in racial and social progress, and also we're envied for our, quote, cool multiracial status. So now it becomes something people look up to and idealize. So,
Yeah.
progress.
Thank you so much for your time, Halle.
Oh, thank you.